Your Holiness, good morning. We are very happy to gather here again and to have Adele Diamond making this morning's presentation. In Adele Diamond, we have a unique combination of developmental psychologist, a person who has been investigating children's and their development and the effects on their brain development. She's also a cognitive neuroscientist, and today's presentation will be about what are the effects of attention training in children and how that can be improved. So, please, Adele.
Thank you very much. Good morning. The main purpose of my talk is to talk about what skills and attributes are important for success in school and in life, and how we can help young children to develop those critical skills. The outline of my talk is I'm going to define what executive control is and talk about why it's important. Then I'll say a little bit about its development, how to help children improve their executive control, lessons from one approach in doing that, and other ways to improve children's executive control. Executive control refers to a set of 3 cognitive skills that rely on a region of the brain known as prefrontal cortex. One of these cognitive skills is inhibitory control, inhibition, the ability to resist a strong inclination to do one thing and instead do what's most appropriate or needed. So, for example, inhibition of distractions, whether internal or external, is needed for focused or selective attention. The ability to inhibit acting impulsively and instead make a better response enables you to resist saying something socially inappropriate or hurtful. For example, suppose there's an old friend that you haven't seen for 20 years, and maybe your first reaction on seeing your friend is, "My God, how much weight you gained." But you don't say that. You inhibit saying that and say something to make your friend feel better. You also need inhibition to resist impulsively hurting somebody else, to get back at that person for hurting you. You also need inhibition to stay on task despite boredom, initial failure, or interesting digressions. That requires the ability to inhibit strong inclinations to give up or to do something more fun. In other words, discipline. Inhibition allows us a measure of control over our attention and our actions so that we're not controlled by external stimuli, our emotions, or old habits of mind or behavior. It doesn't mean it makes it easy, it just makes it possible. Thus, inhibition helps make change possible. The second core executive control skill is working memory, holding information in mind while mentally working with it. Much of my work has focused on situations where you need to hold information in mind and also exercise inhibitory control. I will show you examples later. But I can say now that it is the norm that to do either hold information in mind or exercise inhibitory control, you usually need the other. They usually go together. The third core executive control skill is cognitive flexibility, being able to easily and quickly switch perspectives or the focus of attention, flexibly adjusting to change demands or priorities. Cognitive flexibility is critical for creative problem solving. What are other ways I can react when something happens? What are other ways I can conceptualize a problem, maybe think of it as an opportunity? What are other ways I can try to overcome a problem? Why does one child get good grades and another poor ones? That depends far more on discipline, an aspect of inhibitory control, than it does on IQ. I predict that improving young children's executive control will help them succeed in and be more likely to graduate from school, and will reduce the incidence or severity of mental health disorders of executive control, such as ADHD, attention deficit disorder, or addictions. Okay, now I'm to the development of executive control. Prefrontal cortex, on which executive control depends, is the last area of the brain to fully mature. It's not fully mature until your 20s. So this, let me do it so that everybody can see. This shows the development over years from 5 to 20. In the youngest years, you see the blue and the purple show the most mature levels. So you can see that motor cortex, primary motor cortex, and primary sensory cortex, like visual cortex, mature early. But even at age 17, prefrontal cortex is not fully mature. It matures very late. So executive control takes a long time to fully develop. Executive control is the characteristic most predictive of school readiness. Sadly, kindergarten teachers report that over half their children lack effective executive control skills, and that poor executive control is their single most difficult challenge in teaching. One characteristic of executive control in children is very poor inhibition. We adults we adults may not appreciate how extremely difficult inhibition is for young children because it's less difficult for us. So I wanted to give an example. And I think that to understand things, it's best to experience it yourself. So this is a test we use to study executive control in children as young as 4 through adults. So imagine you have a response button for each thumb. Okay, everybody has a button for each thumb. And one rule is that when you see a heart, you press on the same side as the heart. So here you would press with your left thumb, okay? The other rule is that when you see a flower, you press with the thumb on the opposite side, okay? The hearts are easy because everyone's natural tendency is to activate the hand on the same side as the stimulus. But flowers require you...
So can you repeat that a bit? Why is it easier?
It's built into the nervous system of all animals that when you see something on the left or the right, your hand, your body also tends to get activated. Okay? So when you have the rule that you press on the opposite side, you have to inhibit that. And then when the rules are mixed together, you have to flexibly switch between them. So first, we're going to do heart trials. So you only press on the same side as the heart. Is everyone ready?
Test the susu dunia computer which they that ningle much da metor much yorba that ningle much lawion tensona young bottom the names yel tensona yeg bottom the names lab da chita kata simjeng soja rik changmalia susu show kawag katu keben di choge labada gangbada digiti pechuchede nyuro yores 그래서 그 초트 뭐 작어봐. 다 메도 유연할 때 라바이 코스테 메도 예할 때 이제 라바이 예 냄 고구도나 lela medo yön den.
So you need your thumbs ready. Are you ready? Yes. Good. Thank you. Okay. So heart, same side. Excellent. Okay.
네, den 그거래.
I don't know.
You press as if you have a button. Yes, good. Okay. So now you will only see flowers. So now you always press on the side opposite the flower. This is
다초
different.
돈 nem 그래서 예리는 연nem 연는 예nem.
Okay? Okay.
네, 테스트.
I don't think my difference is.
No, you're right. Now you're going to get both flower trials and heart trials. So remember, heart, same side, flower, opposite. Heart, same side, flower, opposite. Are you ready?
두네 땡그레스. 근데 되니 tukje 땡그레스. 그래서 닝 가와요는 디초 nem스. 메도 가와요는 고 도초 nem 그거레스. 초. 메도 예리요나 라와요 nem 테부요 nem 메도 요나 테부예 nem.
You need to try, otherwise you won't appreciate what I have to say. You won't. You need to experience it, otherwise you can't understand. Okay, good luck. Okay, most people find that last part harder. If you look at the performance of adults, we find just doing flowers or just doing hearts are the same, just like you said. We're just as fast and we're just as accurate if we only have hearts or we only have flowers. But if you do what David talked about with mixing them together, we're less accurate and we're slower over here, okay? And you see the same thing in children. At all ages, the mixed condition is much harder when you have to flip between the rules. But this is the important point. Now, His Holiness said the heart and the flowers were no different, and that's true for all adults. Doing only flowers or only hearts are equal. But that's not true for children. From all the ages we studied, whether they're 4 years old or 13, which is as old as we studied, if you have to do flowers, you're worse than if you just do hearts. Even though every trial is a flower, it's not harder for us, but it's harder for children. So at every age we studied, children were slower and less accurate on the flower block than on the heart block. That effect is completely absent in adults. We also ask our people to remember...
Is it because you have to press on the opposite hand?
Yes.
Is that the only reason?
You can do any kind of rule. You can any kind of task where you just have to change what you were doing before, and we adults will immediately relax into doing that if that's what we have to do for all the trials. But children don't do that. No matter how many trials you give them, they have the effect of the first thing they had to do or their natural inclination of how you should do it. Make sense? Good. We also had people try to remember arbitrary rules, like for one stupid shape you press left and for another stupid shape you press right. And then after they remembered 2 rules, we gave them 4 more, so they had 6 rules to remember. Even very young children have excellent memories. The difference in their performance when inhibition is required, so the difference of going from hearts to flowers, is greater for children than the difference of going from 2 rules to 6. The opposite is true for us adults. Increasing memory demands is far more difficult for us on inhibition.
알레 부리 템버트 시라 노아체 템버트 난 망부냐고에 내가 듣는 거는 부수 야가체 다야 고 돔제 아니 제불 파슬로에 자 제불로에 되는 야 gembu zu ta chi bu zu shira gyo tos.
Okay. On the other hand, adults are also more like young children than we adults would often like to admit. So here's an example where you have to sort cards. If you sort cards by color, then the blue truck goes with the blue star. But if you sort cards by shape, then the blue truck goes with the red truck. 3-year-olds can sort cards perfectly by either color or shape. No problem.
경험해 주세요.
나를 가다 기밥도 조금씩 들어서 가다 입고 돈에 남배 제배는데도 가도 돈에 입제 담배네.
But very few 3-year-olds can switch. This is a different kind of switching now, right? So we're not changing the side, we're changing the concept. And I want to show you this. You're going to hear a child who's very verbal about what she's going through. So you may want to chuckle, but chuckle to yourself so you can hear the little girl. Yes, it's a video. Can we have sound? Louder?
Excellent. And where do the stars go? Good job.
Louder?
This is a truck. Where does it go? Go ahead. So, trucks go here and stars go here. Here we go, Caleb. This is a star. Where does it go? Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to start playing the color game. Remember, in the color game, red ones go here and blue ones go here. So, the blue one, where does it go? Go ahead. Well, remember, we're playing the color game. And in the color game, blue ones go here and red ones go here. So this is a blue one. Where does it go? Where do you think it goes? Where do you think it goes? Where do you think it goes? And take it and put it there. Okay. So point to where the blue ones go.
나를 내가 당분간에 입 슈 미국 때문에 봐. 미국 보여야 돼. 가고 지도 가도 되기도 원세도 거라. 일단 임지 단도가 당분간에 임지도 입그 돈 당슬라 봐. 더 콜토 잡지. 가도 오다는 임지 당슬라는 임지 당마도. How old is this girl?
She's 3 years old.
Los hombres.
This is a blue one. Where does it go? Where do you think it goes? Okay. Show me where the red ones go. And where do the blue ones go? Excellent. Very nice. This is a blue one. Where does it go? Go ahead.
Okay, so you get the idea.
It takes that
The-
long?
What, excuse me?
It takes that long to switch.
She won't switch. She never
Really?
switches. Never. And this is typical. And it doesn't matter whether you start with color or start with shape. Now, you noticed that the child knows what dimension to sort by, and the child knows how to sort correctly. She knows where the red goes and where the blue goes. Before the stimulus appears, she's all set to sort correctly. It's not enough to know something or remember it. You must get that knowledge into your behavior. It doesn't follow immediately that if you know, you do. The core problem for 3-year-olds is in switching appears to be attentional inertia. Once they have focused their attention on a dimension, their attention gets stuck there. They need to disengage from or inhibit their previous way of thinking about the stimuli.
그러다가 북조 미국으로부터 질 찾아봤을 때 잡으시고는 계속 지금 때 잡으시고대 안에 대 토를 잡지 미국 보여야 돼 강한 시비도 미국 보고를 engel 비기 나를 미국 때서 저러 되네 추래 셈데 안에 직 디테일을 붙인 신의 법보고로 따뜻 제모도서
Now, we also did this with adults. Now, remember, Children make very few mistakes, 3-year-olds, on the first dimension, but they make many mistakes on the second dimension.
말해도 보죠. 당보대 늑변에 가져다 입가를 담배네 힘지 당슬면 그저 야고 당도 그래서 니부 담배가는 노주망 보셔야지.
You'll be pleased to know that we adults don't do that. But if you look at how fast we respond, you see the same pattern in adults that you see in children in accuracy. So look at this. The next slide is adults. We're much faster on the first block, on the first dimension, than we are on the second dimension. In fact, if we can give adults many more trials than children. If you start with color, you're faster on color the whole time. And if you start with shape, you're faster on shape the whole time. Adults show many of the same cognitive biases that characterize young children, that make us laugh when young children do them. Though in we adults, these biases are more subtle and held more in check because we are better able to inhibit them. Okay, now to get to how to try to improve executive control. One way is an early education program which is based on the teachings of a Russian psychologist named Vygotsky. Vygotsky emphasized the importance of social pretend play for the development of executive control. Social pretend play is making believe that you're the mommy and somebody else is the baby, or you're the policeman and somebody else is a criminal. Okay? If you're doing that, you have to hold in mind what role you picked and what roles your friends picked. You have to inhibit acting out of character. So if you're the baby, you can't all of a sudden tell mommy what to do. You have to stay in your role. And then your friends may take that play scenario in ways you never imagined because you're just making it up as you go. So you need working memory, you need inhibition, and you need cognitive flexibility. All three executive control skills, and the children just think they're playing. Now, when executive control activities were tried as something added on to an existing curriculum, so for example, maybe between 10 to 11 in the morning, children would do executive control activities, the children improved on what they practiced, but the benefits didn't generalize to other contexts or other executive control skills. For the benefits to generalize to other contexts and other executive control skills, training in and challenges to executive control needed to be integrated in all school activities throughout the day. So if you're doing a literacy activity or a math activity, you still needed part of that to be addressing executive control. So one example of that in a literacy activity is to tell the children 4 years of age or 5 years of age to get into pairs and to each get a picture book and be prepared to tell the other child the story that goes with the pictures in your book, to read to the other child. Well, if both children are ready to tell their story, nobody wants to listen. Everybody wants to tell their story. And if you try to ask a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old to wait, you're wasting your breath. It doesn't work. So what they do in here, in Tools of the Mind, is, let me see if I can find my mouse, is they give one child a picture of a mouth. You can't see that here. And the other child a picture of an ear. And they explain that ears don't talk, ears listen. And with that concrete reminder, the children actually listen. If you don't have that, they don't. And after a few months, they don't need that anymore. They've internalized it. So they give them supports so that they succeed. And then as they get better and better, they remove the supports gradually.
여배나 년대 그래서 당부년이야 지금 좀 세번 지고 년구로 됐라면 부글 구슬라면 구에 백하고 그랬어. 근데 암저를 못해 지글이야 카이를 못해. 근데 그 공부를 된 주제. 그냥 카이를 뭐 여배 걸을 게 지고 그랬어. 그냥 암저를 뭐 여배 걸을 예 투즈레스. 그러니까
Okay. Another example is young children, 5, 6 years of age, will often do mirror reversals in their writing. It's very normal, and teachers find it very hard to get them to change. So usually teachers wait till they grow out of it. But this program has something which immediately gets children to stop doing that. What they tell the children is this afternoon, when you do your assignment, every time you have to write the number or the letter that you reverse, put down your pencil and pick up a red pencil. That's all they tell them. And after that afternoon, never again mirror reversals. Like a miracle. To understand why that works. To understand why that works, I wanted to go to a test I developed years ago for children. On this test, there are cards. And when you see a black card with a moon, you're to say day. And when you see a white card with a sun, you're to say night. So you have to hold two rules in mind and inhibit saying what the cards really represent. 4-year-olds have trouble doing this. But it seemed to us that they knew what they should do, but they were too impulsive, too eager to respond, and didn't give themselves the time they needed to figure out the answer. So we felt they needed to wait. But if you ask a 4-year-old to wait, it doesn't work. So we needed to figure out a way to get them to work. And the way we figured out was after we show the child the card, we sing a little song to the child. Very short, but the child doesn't respond till after we're finished with our song. Now, you might think that singing to the child would interfere with their calculating the right answer. But what you find is that if you don't do that, children are a chance. But if you do the little song, they're up about 90% correct. Now, if you sing that song between trials, before you show the card, it doesn't help because they don't yet know what the answer should be, so they can't use it to calculate. It only helps if you show after you see the card. Now I'm going to show another video. Normally, we don't have the same child do both the song and regular, but for the purposes of having a film company come, we did both. First, you'll see the child do standard, and you'll see that he knows the right answer, but sometimes he impulsively gives the wrong answer and then immediately corrects himself. Or sometimes he's so eager to respond, he answers before I even show the card. But you'll see how different he is with the song. Now, I must apologize to everyone. I am a terrible singer, but I didn't want to embarrass anyone else in my lab, so you have me doing this. The child will say morning or night. Sound? Okay, I just stopped it so that we could get sound. I'll go right back. My volume's up. Good. And when you see this black card with the moon, you're supposed to say yay. Yes. Yes, yeah. So what do you say when you see this? Ah. Okay, 1 minute. In this game, When you see this white card with a sun, you're supposed to say night. Can you say night? Good. And when you see this black card with the moon, you're supposed to say day. Yes. So what do you say when you see this?
Night.
Yes. And what do you say when you see this?
Morning. Morning. Night. Morning. Night. Morning. Night. Night. Morning. Night. Morning.
Yes. Can we try it once more? This time, I'm going to sing a little ditty after I show you the card. And I don't want you to answer till after I'm finished singing, okay? Can we try that? Okay. So, think about the answer, don't tell me. Now can you tell me? What do you say?
Morning.
Think about the answer, don't tell me. Now what do you say?
Night.
Think about the answer, don't tell me. Now.
Night.
Think about the answer, don't tell me. Now.
Morning.
Think about the answer, don't tell me. Now.
Morning.
Okay. What you noticed is the child had two problems. One is the child is too impulsive and doesn't wait as long as the child needs to get the answer out. But that would not be a problem if the child could quickly figure out the answer. The problem is that the child is both impulsive and slow. If the child was able to calculate the answer quickly, it wouldn't matter if he was impulsive. It's that he has both problems. Now, the reversed writing did the same thing as my song. The child had an automaticity of doing this reversal in writing. And in order to get the child to break it, we needed to give him time to do what he knew he should do. But to ask him to wait wouldn't work. So they asked him to put his pencil down and pick up a different pencil. And that just gave him the time to do the right thing and broke the habit. We looked at where the children in Tools of the Mind showed better executive control and academic progress than comparable children in an excellent program that differed only in not having activities to train and challenge executive control.
Executive control ki activity of the tools of the mind. And the difference was significant?
Yes, I'll show in a minute. To study this, we chose activities completely different from anything the children had ever done before. So to see an effect, the children would have to transfer their training in executive control to completely new situations. So we gave them the hearts and flowers task. This is a child doing that. When they just have the flower block, they just do flowers, children in Tools of the Mind did better than children in the other curriculum. This is significant, but it's not that big a difference. Here is the harder mixed block. Most of the children in the other curriculum could not even demonstrate during practice that they could do this at all. They were completely unable to do mixing of flowers and hearts. But most of the children in the Tools program could do that. This is not only a significant difference, it's a big difference. We had another measure I won't go into. The children in the other condition were performing a chance. The children in Tools were performing at about 85% correct. That's a big difference. and that was published in Science. Better academic performance in children in the program that improved executive control has been replicated with other children and other teachers in other schools and states and with different comparison conditions. Okay, now, lessons to learn from this. Executive control skills can be improved even in children as young as 4 or 5, without expensive, highly technical equipment by regular teachers in regular classrooms. Secondly, though teachers, at least in the West, are being pressured to allow less time for play, to have more time for academic instruction, play is important. Children who spend more time at play perform better academically than comparable children who receive more direct academic instruction. The next one is feedback loops, and I will explain. If you start school with poor executive control, you have problems like yelling the answer out when you should be quiet, or not staying in your seat, or taking things from other children, or not paying attention for long enough. So the teacher is always yelling at you, and you're getting poor grades. The teacher comes to expect you not to perform well. You come to expect yourself not to perform well, and you think this is no fun at all. I want to go away from here. Then imagine the child who begins school with good executive control. You're able to sit in your seat and pay attention, and the teacher says, "What a pleasure you are. I wish I had a whole class of children like you." And you're able to do your assignments, you get good grades, you think, I kind of like this. I want to invest in being part of this thing that makes me feel so good about me. Poor children start school with slightly less good executive control than more advantaged children. And poor children fall farther and farther behind more advantaged children each year they are in school. Farther behind in their academic performance.
Yeah.
That widening achievement gap may result from the actions of two opposite feedback loops, beginning with small initial differences in executive control. So one feedback loop is going in the negative direction, and the other feedback loop is going in the positive direction. I predict that helping poor children improve their executive control skills early might help close that achievement gap and reduce social inequalities. A small improvement in executive control early might set a positive feedback loop in motion, and that might produce increasing benefits each year a child is in school. The recent explosion in diagnoses of ADHD might be due in part to some children never learning to exercise executive control. I predict, and we're now testing, that an early education program that improves executive control will not only lead to better school outcomes, but to better mental health outcomes. Many issues are not simply education issues or health issues, they are both. Okay, my last thing to talk about other ways to improve executive control. Many people are interested in using sitting meditation, concentrating in your breath, to help young children improve executive control. But little children of 4 or 5 find it too hard to sit still for long periods. It's not appropriate for their age. But this is an example of a walking meditation exercise that is appropriate for such young children. Everyone, even the adults, gets a bell. And everybody follows the leader and walks in a line or a circle. The goal is that no one should make a sound with their bell. That's a kind of meditation that even a 4-year-old can do. One thing we might talk about after I'm finished, which will be very soon, is what other age-appropriate meditative exercises do you know of for children that young? Okay, martial arts is another thing that helps improve executive control. For example, Taekwondo has been shown to improve executive control and also academic performance. I want to end by talking about 2 extraordinary programs. One is Venezuela's National System of Youth and Children Orchestras. It's known as El Sistema. It's the brainchild of a Venezuelan economist who also happened to be a conductor and composer, Jose Antonio Abreu, who envisioned classical music training as a social intervention that could transform the lives of poor children. The other program is the National Dance Institute, NDI, in New York City. It was founded by the remarkable, irrepressible Jacques d'Amboise, a famous ballet dancer and recipient of many honors, including the National Medal of Honor. Jacques came from a poor family, dropped out of school, and was headed for trouble. He happened to walk his sister to dance class one day, and it changed his life. So he founded NDI to help other troubled youths through dance. Both programs were started in the mid-1970s, and both have reached hundreds of thousands of children, especially poor children. The Venezuelan program has been so successful that it has spread to 26 other countries in South America and Central America. Both programs serve all children. The orchestra even serves children who are deaf, and the dance program even serves children in wheelchairs. And both are provided completely free, so even poor children can participate. Both programs require the children to work hard. They have to exercise discipline and persistence and practice. They hold the children to very high standards. They challenge the children. They're cognitively demanding. You have to hold information in mind. You have to remember sequences. You have to pay careful attention. Both involve physical activity. Even to play an instrument requires visual motor coordination. Both give the children a wonderful sense of self-confidence and pride. And you'll see in the video the joy on the children's faces. And both provide social support and social belonging. This is not individual performance. The children perform as part of a group. The children help one another, listen to one another, and respect one another. Each is an important part of the whole. So both of these programs address our intellect, our physical motor, our social being, and our emotions. And all of those are an important part of who we are. And it's important to address each of those, not just one or the other. In the West, we too often focus just on the intellect. It's not good. Okay, so this is a video. First, it's El Sistema. Then it's National Dance Institute. El Sistema is in Venezuela, so the people speak in Spanish. Don't worry about catching every word. It's not that important. Oh, we need sound. One second.
Nosotros, a pesar que vivimos en un barrio humilde, que hay inseguridad, nosotros a pesar no han dado educación. Hay muchas personas que dicen, él vive en un barrio y no le han dado educación.
Era el primer día de la orquesta de cámara, entonces yo venía temprano y me dijeron, Entonces me dieron un disparo en la pierna y no pude ir. Entonces yo llorando porque no me dolía la pierna, pero más me dolía que no iba a estar aquí el día ese en el que está de cama. Y se le olvida cuando uno llega aquí, se le olvida todo, todo, todo.
El profesor nos dice, toquen pero con su corazón, no con la mente, con el corazón.
En Venezuela, nosotros estamos en este momento trabajando para un universo de beneficiarios que se calcula en 265.000 jóvenes y niños. Pero esto es apenas el comienzo.
Nosotros estamos aprendiendo a tocar trompeta como para sacar nuestra familia adelante. Estamos para adelante como el elefante.
I started National Dance Institute because I had no other choice in my life. And I wanted children to have the joy that came to me in my life from learning in the arts and being a child.
The basis of the NDI teaching is setting high standards for children. NDI teachers just don't accept mediocrity.
I want to see who gets their knees the highest. I go first, I go. One.
We set the bar really high, and you know what? Children come to that place. I mean, you go in there with those expectations, and they rise to them.
Like a lot of steps, they seem really hard, but if you really learn them, they're very, very easy. And you're like, wow, I thought it was so much more difficult, but it's really not.
We don't ask them to do any more than they're capable of, but we challenge them so far beyond what they ever thought they were capable of.
You'll see a transformation when you go watch an NDI class. When you are young and you do something positive, you've achieved something. That sticks with you all your life.
Take his arms and show him his arms.
The children learn to help each other. They learn to understand that each one of them is an important element to the success of the whole team.
As a kid, it's like if you're in class and you feel like you're not succeeding in class, NDI was the one place where if you didn't get the step, you didn't quit. You had everyone supporting you and encouraging you, and you got it.
It's all right, it's okay. Because the smile in the face, bravo.
I shudder to think what I might be doing if NDI hadn't come along when they did. NDI made me feel special, because no one else did. They took a chance on a kid they didn't even know.
We hear all the time that kids gain a kind of confidence that they're able to do so much more in their lives than they had ever expected.
The focus of the NDI program is the in-school program. It's a program that happens during the school day to underscore our belief that the arts should be part of every child's education. So the NDI class partners with schools, and we provide the program for an entire grade level. It's not an audition program. Every child participates, and if they commit, they are guaranteed success.
It's not an easy program. The movement itself is very challenging, and they're constantly changing directions, changing counts. People are doing things at different times. That's a big concept for kids at this age.
It's a lot easier to focus, because when you learn to focus on something that's fun, sometimes, if you want to, you can learn to focus on something that's not so fun.
NDI is like that one little spark you come across one time and never find again. If you want it, you need to grab hold and hold on tight, because NDI will take you places.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if I can go on. I'm at the end. I just have two questions. Would any of these practices or activities, tools of the mind, dance, or any of the others, be appropriate in Tibetan schools? What practices or activities are used with Tibetan children to improve their attention and executive control? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adele.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adele. I think we should use this opportunity to start our discussion with these questions. And so we should maybe make a 15 minutes tea break.
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You come back.
No, Sujit.
Raise the first question, and then we can lead on into the second one.
I was wondering if the programs I talked about, like Tools of the Mind, with the children being the reader and the listener, or the dance program, or the orchestras, any of those, would be appropriate for Tibetan children. And if there are other ways that people use with young Tibetan children to help improve their attention and executive control, what can we learn from how your colleagues help children improve their executive control?
I think answer answer I think very simple. We Tibetan also human being. No differences. Same blood. I think same brain. So certainly we need this new technique. Very good. Wonderful. That's very good. 당연히 가지고 그 부수관소로 지금 되네. 그 kindergarten 도와주고 다 여러 번 보고 대저장 믹스 트레이닝 시험데. 근데 다 소통을 해서 과리샤.
So, of course, we have many Tibetan schools, such as the Tibetan Children's Village there, which has many different levels of grades. So, I think
in all settlement, the kindergarten, very young children there. So, of course, we are a refugee community, small number. Of course, this is not a political statement. Of course, the reality is the remaining 6 million Tibetan inside Tibet, no freedom. The education system is just indoctrination. So only about 100,000, 150,000 Tibetans in a free country have the opportunity to study properly, right? And small number, which actually, I think, we are working. Our very existence is something like on behalf of remaining 6 million Tibetan. So small number here, training, education, properly because of that
bringing up,
at most important.
What?
So it's Holiness is wondering what would be the logistics and the practical steps to explore if something like this could be introduced to the Tibetan children. And of course, the need and importance seems to be very evident.
The two women who developed the program I studied could come and show teachers how to do it. It's not a program that you can learn just from reading, from a manual. You need to get personal instruction and feedback on what you do.
Right. Very important, yes.
But I also feel that no one program has all the right answers. So it doesn't mean that replicating exactly Tools of the Mind is best. A little bit of Tools of the Mind and maybe a little bit from other approaches could also be very beneficial, because many people have a little bit of knowledge and good ideas. And if you can bring them together, then you can benefit much. But I wonder what your schools do now to help children get better control of their attention. What do you do with 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds?
I don't know. I myself is bringing not that way. I grown up or study under my tutors was a Kasa whip.
Yeah, with the supervision of the whip.
Is that executive control?
Unfortunately, I think our scholars, I think the genuine practitioner, of course, they are the way bringing up is very strict. Not this kind of thing, but somehow many of them, their mind, are very sharp. Of course, most important, I think sharpness of mind, warm-heartedness. I think as a result, I think immense benefit. That much I can say, according to my own experience. Oh, and then also is it learning by heart.
Memorization is an important part.
It's very excellent training for executive control and memory. Also, storytelling is a wonderful way to help children develop executive control because they have to pay careful attention and they have to hold the information in mind and relate what you're saying now to what you said earlier. Storytelling is wonderful for developing executive control.
How does storytelling differ from just watching TV?
Developmental,
because obviously we have, particularly in the West, we have a culture which is based education through TV.
Yes.
So could you explore on that?
Two important ways. One is storytelling differs even from picture books or video because you don't have the visual support. You don't have the ear and the mouth to see. So you have to hold things in mind more. So without the visual aid, you're already advancing executive control development. But computers and videos usually assume you have very short attention span. So they keep changing what's there to pull you in because they assume you will wander. So they don't help you develop sustained attention because they assume you don't have it. And also, it's an isolated activity. You do it by yourself.
Executive control television program
Also, you do these things by yourself. You work on the computer alone. And that isn't as powerful for developing executive control as social situations. There was a study in Russia that looked at 5-year-olds a little while ago and looked at 5-year-olds 30 years ago. And they found that 5-year-olds 30 years ago were 2 years advanced in executive control compared to 5-year-olds now. And I think that part of that has to do with now we are doing things more individually and on the computer. Before, we used to play with our friends. You get home from school, you play sports outside. You make up games together. You're doing things socially. I think that that is important for developing executive control.
Ursulia could cheva chevres, Lord Nishu Kongi, Pulongabe, some Tantanta, some Luceta, Tate, Pulongabe, some Luceti to Cheva Gabia, Lord Nishu Kongia, an executive Tangzin Chajua, didn't know what it taught us. Lord needs present that did you put to Lapran to Leba that Zemania bought the Punyambo Pazu to Sushita Kegorva. Things on to the Manga that should now lessons on TV that the day channel, Kiwamendos.
David, a short question or statement?
Comment and question. So, as you may know, Your Holiness, the Mind and Life Institute is preparing to have a meeting in Washington, D.C. on education and the mind in October. And as part of preparing for this, there has been much discussion by the Mind and Life education research network about kinds of training that have been used previously in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries. And in particular, at one of our meetings, there was considerable discussion about the role of debate training. And on the basis of what Adele has said, it sounds like the Tibetan Buddhists, at least for adolescents, have evolved the very best possible kind of training program for increasing executive control, because it sounds to me like debate training, if I understand it, does all and everything that Adele has suggested would be good for training the mind in executive control. Perhaps you could comment on this further?
program yoba di chama kejo chang de ne tong tu su den ko ya ke kana yunas
page zuri di sha kejo yisari the chuji the precise shadati ko chama chho sa di shay zane na sa ji samne na ya so so sam ta bi ne ta mil chama ji zwe ke ga so zwe di so so sam ta ni zane oh the din din gu oh the din di khalina sabati
So with the debate training, one thing that seems to be very significant in the development through debate is the ability to think fast and also make the connections very fast, because you often use the language of entailment. If A, then B, therefore if B, then A, and so on. So so you learn to see the connections very fast, and so that way you are able to think very fast as well. So that seems to be an important element that is developed in the debate.
So in 60s, when our school established,
curriculum,
school established, we start the debate technique introduced in our school.
Ordinary schools. Ordinary schools.
Traditionally, only some monastic institution usually carried that technique. Usually not, of course, no layperson.
No layperson studies it. Yeah.
And also nuns usually is not. So in early 60s, firstly, we introduced that in our school, boys and girls, no differences. Then also later, most of our nunnery now introduced that technique. So very, very helpful. So to
sharpen the mind.
Sharpen the mind. So the other day, one occasion I mentioned. Now that same technique, tadi kazore, the tadashidanal, the modern economies and sort of laws arrow. Oh, the zonal, the telches ready. That did no go with. I don't know the telches books on the lives and now so kada in the kabi charter sarda, kadakama to do. That did maybe subject you do not that is so jago is.
So he's
always I'm sorry, sharing the Luris of the sharing the channel, then is Kagaro, Yanko, Hashuma, Shesha, but it's like Sikimidua. That is bit on big Luri, cousin alone and Shiri, at the senior level, and Luri or Comastion, Iba, Chiswa, the 10 Jewish Luxisha, Tishavish, or the Ds or Shishata, Ma de. And the things are the modern time, the Dani, and the Louis dangerous Salaquash. The did has a treasure
So, in fact, His Holiness recently made the suggestion in another context that given the kind of the benefits of this debate approach in scholarship. He has made the suggestion that maybe the Tibetans should be able to learn it so that it can be applied in completely non-Buddhist subjects,
Yes,
say like
yes.
law or
Absolutely.
or study of biology or whatever. So it could be developed to a point where it can be applied independent of the content, which is at the moment the Buddhist, Buddhist field.
Sometimes I joke, half serious. Particularly those students who study law, eventually become lawyer, maybe good.
Debate. Through debate.
This debate, in order to defeat other one.
So they'll be able to really press on the fine-tuning of the meaning of what is being said. In fact, the elementary stage of debate training is known as Dura, collected topics. And so there is a saying that if the debater can disprove what is being said to be the case and prove what is being rejected by the opponent, then that's the mark that he or she has mastered the technique.
Yes, yes.
Modern education something.
So this is something that may have a beneficial application in the modern education context as well.
Since I think at least in a few decades, I had sort of a view, and many of my friends agree, modern education system not adequate pay attention about ethics or inner sort of
qualities,
inner quality. And now there are, I think, two different views. One view, moral ethics must be based on religious faith. It is true, in some extent, true. All major religious traditions, you see, their basic message is moral ethics. Love, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, these things. Self-discipline, like that. But the other hand, another sort of view, there can be different levels of ethics. On broader level, or I think the
fundamental
level, you see, naturally there are sort of universal sort of value. Now, for example, affection, respect each other, and consider other as a human brother, sister. That is just, you see, the concept of we extend entire 6 billion human beings. Not emphasis we and they, and we very small circle. Then finally oneself. Then all these troubles. So our sort of attitude, because of the whole world, whole 6 billion human beings, whole planet, is part of we. I have to take care. If something goes wrong, other side, I will lose. I will suffer. So that, nothing to do with the religion. This is reality, isn't it? We are a social animal. I think you mentioned, I think those children, mixing with more children, their mind more happier and something, then through that way, self-confidence, these things happen.
Yes.
So the lonely, isolated, then more fear, more doubt, like that, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So now here, I usually call, and many Indians fully sort of agree, secular way, nothing to do with religion. But some my friend, some Muslim, also some Christian, or one time in Germany, I think many years ago, I think more than 10, 15 years ago, I just talked, I was referred with this problem, and he mentioned moral ethics must be based on religion, religious faith. Then very difficult in public sort of education.
Yes.
How? It was very difficult to bring in curriculum. Yes, moral ethics must be based on religion. Then more complication. What religion?
Which
religion? Theistic religion, non-theistic religion. Theistic religion, still again, Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, like that. Difficult. And particularly like India, impossible. Multi-religious sort of nation, impossible. So we now, I think now you mean boring.
No, very, very interesting. Please, no, absolutely not. It's central.
Sure, sorry. So, I always telling these people or expressing people in reality, I think now generally say about 1,000 million Muslim, 1,000 million Christian, 600 or 700 Hindus, isn't it? And Buddhists maybe a few hundred, 200 or 200 millions. Huh? 400. Now here you see we must include the Chinese Buddhist brothers, sisters. Oh, right.
No practice.
But if you examine seriously these 1,000 Christian, 1,000 million Christian and Muslim and the Hindus and Buddhists, when they are happy, yes, claim, I'm Buddhist, I'm Christian, okay. When things become difficult, I don't think much seriousness about religion. Always say God, God. But we pay more attention about money. The other day, dollar, more important than God.
Yes.
Very clear. What a pork should.
That was ants.
So that's the reality. We Buddhist monk also, we always talk contentment, but oneself need more money, more dollar. So we are not very serious. So, as a Buddhist, we always say the destructiveness of our destructive emotions. While we are saying that, but we ourselves still slave of these destructive emotions. So therefore, in reality, majority of 6 billion human beings, I don't think really seriously
minded believers. No?
So naturally, these are majority. So some ethics should include these non-believer. So naturally, secular ethics. Secular ethics, even to some extent, some animals, particularly social animals, and also those, I think, practically every animal which their life begin with mother, whether through egg or from
womb.
From womb. You see, their survival entirely depend on others' care. In order to maximum care, there must be some energy. Bring by will. That will come from affection. Whether you call love or affection, without that, mother will not pay much attention about caring. So therefore, biologically, these things equipped biologically. Right? So that is seed of compassion. So these animals, no religion, no constitution, no police force, but by biological factor, they take maximum care about their young one. So that's nature. Nature. So that also, you see, in our case, that's the seed of our compassion. So naturally, now that, nothing to do with religion. So now that take as a seed. And then, with the awareness of usefulness of that, now like
science,
those scientists, and particularly medical scientists, so now they clearly realize the more compassionate person, their mind more calm. As a result, health better. Even a lot of disturbances in deep down, still you can keep calm mind. So therefore, through that way, usually I describe using our common sense and common experience, and then latest scientific finding. On these basis, we can develop new curriculum about moral ethics, which can
brought into.
Then can be in modern school, from kindergarten, we can introduce. Nothing to do with religion. So that's my view. So many occasions in England or in America, in many places, in Japan, I express these things. So, of course, the people, all audience, seems to agree. But now we need someone who actually carrying
the initiative,
study, research. I have not that ability. I just express. I think I can say on behalf of those weak people who really suffer out of affection, lack of affection, exploitation, politically, militarily, or economically. All these problems ultimately related with here. Problem not come from gun, user, isn't it? Ultimately here. But nobody pay serious attention on that.
That's right.
We take for granted anger, hatred, these we take for granted. This is part of our nature. So sometimes we deliberately increase in these negative emotion.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm hopefully our next meeting in Washington, those experts, you going to participate? Or planning. So I'm hoping, the scientist, respected scientist, well-known scientist, you have the authority. I'm just simple Buddhist monk. And of course, frankly speaking, I have no knowledge.
Expertise.
Expertise.
Authority.
So those experts, educationists, and also scientists, and health scientists, or the social scientists, come and work to and some concrete plan, proposal. Then maybe some state, individual state, can implement. Then eventually some quite as your experiment, you see, even that Venezuela and the
neo dance.
These like that.
Yes.
You see, someone implement that.
That's right.
Then eventually, you see, people recognize or acknowledge some
benefit,
positive result. Then eventually may possible to bring notice at UN or some other world body. Yeah? When you see, the Chinese education system become like that, then I think we Tibetan get real liberation. Still hatred, suspicion, distrust, hatred remain there. We will suffer.
The Venezuela.
Fortunately, there are already now some good Chinese really showing genuine feeling of concern and solidarity already happening. So that's positive sign. Like that, I don't know now.
The Venezuelan program, which has reached over 500,000 children, started with 11 children in the man's garage. And from that, it grew. So things can start very small, but still get big.
The president kasa. Venezuela.
Hugo Chavez.
Congo gochi marwa.
Yeah. Venezuela.
The program di. The president gochi marwa.
So His Holiness was asking, this program was not initiated by Hugo Chavez, is it?
No.
I think he should take credit survey.
Credit. He could take
as the president of Venezuela.
He deserves credit for putting a lot of government money into it. He's put huge resources into it and really supported it.
Very good.
I wanted to come back to a point you said, which was that we accept that negative emotions are natural, and which is a bad idea. And in the video, they said that we hold the children to high standards and they rise to them. And I think that if we say that negative emotions are not natural and you should be able to overcome them, then if you have that as the expectation, people will rise to them. Many teachers of young children assume they can't exercise executive control. They give up. And so the children don't get better because the teachers don't think that they can do it. So what you were saying is if you have a low expectation and you assume that negative emotions will be there, it doesn't lead to the best result. You need to have the high expectation that they don't have to be there.
Cortex, no. She did be charging on it. Because you sort of some down there and you go shoot your marvels. Could tell you, no.
Amishi?
I'd like to just
one question.
Say one thing tied to the things you mentioned, Your Holiness, about secular ethics, about controlling negative emotions, and about how to deal with personally disliked groups or the people that suffer when you're the recipient of being a disliked group. Adele mentioned this morning about working memory. And in the work that I'll talk about this afternoon, we can discuss this more. But one thing that has been done, the studies that have been done, have looked at, in adults, individual differences in their capacity for working memory. So how able are you to inhibit, have cognitive flexibility, and maintain information? And there's three three things that seem like they're totally different from each other, but that are completely related to individuals' working memory capacity. One is the ability to control your emotions.
The kind of things they call it as a case here, the detail here could jabber chebe kinky. Young could live kind of Lloyd never cash. Young Kuran Nang Pensulia, Jixil Missender, Metal Solo Kanshi Chilia, Tanzan Chair, Kablia Sama, Pejo Chekunik, and take Keju Sum Sikuzum to Chairs, Jigdi, and Suzu, Jigda or Tonyon Shuchibulambe Kablia, T. There's Shuchung Tang Tomato, Kevalia, Kevachibutus. Negative emotion control.
The second is the ability to make ethical decisions that are based on less emotionally reactive qualities of the problem and more logical aspects of the problem. And the third is the ability to control negative or destructive behavior toward personally disliked groups.
There's somebody any Luke Namju to Shanley, Suso Magasatalia, Jobang and Patemade, Yantel Tangton.
So these are three separate studies that all tie back together to working memory capacity and how it plays out in these other contexts. And what I just wanted to bring that up because the thing we think is happening as a function of contemplative practice is increasing working memory capacity.
That it's some got and the working memory set the Tawa Chautus. So working memory, would you want to explain a little bit what you mean by working memory?
That will come this afternoon.
And how does that differ from short-term memory? Or is
Right.
it
I'll mention it. I'll just say briefly. I'll talk about it. That's what my afternoon discussion will be with you, is describing what this is. But briefly, it's the ability to both hold and use information over very short periods of time.
내가 그 템퍼를 지르자. 내가 그 템퍼의 working memory 제. 이 지점 그 누바체는 대체게 아니 지금 소녀숙신 배우원도 마다야다. 남자 배제 줘야다. 되게 네 개발된 용도도 현재 뭐랑은 도 때문에 남배숑네 셰변 공자에 그리고 뭐지 working memory 누바 숙셔 단계 배서지. 동도스.
인로.
Yes. Could be true. Yeah.
맞이한다. 그러나도 치ing 없이 치 뒤실 전에 지다르다. 락배 원하신 뜻이 거리다. 뒤지게도 공부스도 와. 그래. 그래서 지금 중앙을 양갈내 하면 지시도 와다. 중앙 참가한다 카우스를 카우스를. 배지는 신체니. 아주 다 시베 넘줄 찍기 배이네요. 그 뭔지 그거를 시버커라. 가서다 수직 세셔리 또 똑바로 샤이드잖아요. 그 자도 똑에 그 중주스기면서네. 그렇지 양가를 줄로 레이브도 와. 그래. 뭐마디 뭔가 쉬워지 그게 되게 되죠. 나는 레벨 내가 쓰잖아요. 레벨 처음 뭔가 지기다 두고 domnida lega chigi shigwa ta dinashin maranzu yilu kyabar riridi ko kudu de mayimba kasu keni loka shengma 다음에 decade 공기 하다 르지 콤바치 중데 지다 딘데기 캐버래 다다다데 시베 캐버다 쉬우지 예도 패지르디 가서 우리게 게망고 지금 타니야데 마도 그 겐지 셔터 시작하고
So this
yeah, I mean this holistic way.
So this is very true. I mean, even for example, although it is a slightly crude characterization of the material world, but in the Buddhist text, when we speak of yeah, it's an Abhidhammakosha text. When it describes the material substance that make up the material physical world, it talks about the atom, which are composed of eight different elements. So, the understanding here is that even at that very subtle level, what we have is a composite. Many things coming together. So, particularly when it comes to the mental domain, sometimes when we use language and when we define something and when we conceptualize something, of course, it's the function of language and concept that is very selective. It picks up one characteristic and define it from that particular point of view. But that does not suggest that when these mental factors, processes arise, somehow they arise in this atomic fashion. They are, when the actual experience of these mental processes occur, they are very complex and so interconnected with many other factors, so that in order to fully understand their operation, we need to have a much more comprehensive, integrated perspective. And sometimes the influence may be coming from what happened yesterday, the thoughts that you had yesterday, and some of these influences may even trace back to last decade. So we need to bear in mind that although when we describe these mental factors and mental processes, there is a kind of a slightly atomic approach because we're using language and we're using concepts, and the very nature of the way they function is to select a particular characteristic and latch onto it, but that should not imply that somehow these are independent properties. But when they operate, in order to fully understand the operation, we need to somehow situate them in a much greater network of things that are happening. So that is his Wilderness was saying. That's at least how he understands the Buddhist psychology. So, for example, in India, there's been a lot of discussion on, as part of the philosophy of language. It's not just in Buddhist philosophy, but also in non-Buddhist, kind of Brahminical traditions as well. A distinction has been drawn between the way in which perceptions engage with the object in a much more unmediated, direct interaction, and in contrast, concepts or conceptual thoughts engage with objects through a mediation of concept and language. And so it's an indirect way of engaging with objects. There's been a lot of discussion about the contrast between the two, not just in Buddhism, but also in Brahminical non-Buddhist schools as well. So, for example, when we use a term, the term evokes a concept, and then, so this conceptual representation of what is being described cannot capture completely what is being described.
Just one aspect.
So it selects one aspect, yeah. It focuses on one aspect.
So when actually dealing with that, we must keep in our mind the complexity.
Complexity, yeah.
I would like to bring back the discussion to what Adele was saying today, because I think one of the outstanding features of her presentation was the importance of inhibition. Attention, obviously, our mind is capable to jump on different things, but the technique that is being explained in a Western context here, and I think that's very also true for the Buddhist context, is to actually inhibit jumping on the other, distorting or distracting. And in Buddhism, of course, in Tibetan, it's called ngejung. And I think that's a wrong idea to translate that throughout as renunciation, because actually it's more of a recognizing of where it arises from, and recognizing what comes and appears into your mind, so that you can actually say, no, you don't want to engage in that. And of course, within the monastic setting, there are many rules. And Your Holiness, you mentioned that one of the great inhibiting factors was the whip. Now, are there other techniques that are very specific to actually differentiating and holding back? That is
Possibly. This also that's I think very easy fact. At a young age, study something which the person personally no interest. So then sometimes such cases useful to manipulate fear. So in order to bring fear, the whip important. Just like that. So a certain thing which learned through that way may not go very deep in our mind, because there is reluctance. So when I study by learn by heart. With the threat of the whip. So although the word I learned, but because no interest, so that
there is no interest at all of what is being learned, what is the meaning of what is being memorized. So as a result of just simple repetition, of course the words remain in your mouth.
So later, I think these, my own case, I think it's a similar sort of experience. So at age, I think 7, 8, 10, then 11, 12, gradually develop interest and the desire to know the meaning. Then that is now voluntarily some kind of eagerness to learn. So at that time, you see, those words which, because of the learned by heart, without interest, that then become useful. So that, and then also I think those students whose teacher no smile, no sort of looks, apparently no affection, more difficult, isn't it?
Yes.
The teacher who really shows you affection and kindness and showing sense of concern, your knowledge, your well-being, your whole life. And from Buddhist viewpoint, not only this life, but life after life. Or teaching, or taking care out of this motivation, then the student side, you see, not only sort of learning, but also with love, respect, trust. Isn't it? So I think modern subject also, I think, same. The teacher, it act like parent, then student's mind, all the lesson, really deep inside. So I think I
inhibitory. Domsem kiele.
So domsem rig mangu wa. So the domsem mama di self-discipline. Self-discipline ya di dombe geze pen madombe nimi di tome ko ne domsem ki. This self-discipline.
So from the Buddhist point of view, the most kind of ideal form of inhibitory system really is to have a high degree of self-discipline. And the self-discipline can arise if the person he or she sees the benefits of what is the pursuit that needs to be done. And what are the downside of not doing this. And if you see the benefits and feel deeply convinced by the value of the pursuit, then it can give rise to a voluntary kind of willingness to do it and leads to a self-discipline. So Solons was saying that with relation to Diego's point about Ngenjung, which is renunciation, Solons feels that probably it will be impossible to get a true renunciation under the power of a whip.
So discipline voluntarily, that means self-protection. One's own interest. Although this is some part of my mind, is I want that. But consequences is very bad for me, for my interest. Knowing that, because of the restraint, that's self-discipline, voluntarily, on the basis of awareness, the long-term sort of negative consequences. So that means, because of the self-protection.
Self-protection.
Some discipline, out of sort of
imposed.
Imposed. That's
that doesn't work. Yeah.
Yes, but for young children, sometimes they have the motivation. They want to do the right thing, but they don't have enough inhibitory control to do what they want. They need to get a little older or have somebody help them improve their executive control at a young age. So they want, but they can't do yet.
It's teaching discipline to a young kid is very difficult.
Impossible.
But I showed it could be done. Yes.
You showed two examples. One was with the bell, and so obviously that works as a game where you're sort of trying to do that. So would there be other methods that we could sort of import from the other tradition into just researching if that works?
What's that?
Yeah, Lonzen Che huge pentomor. So Lo Yevas one Yamachilia Sholaga some she's Lonzen Che go to Konda Jutero. That the Pugulo Timber, killing Garochi Muchadero.
But the Kashi the court, what is it on
the Ineta co Cheguyo and that check over the Chetukala, Kutukala Kanjike, Singamata Chimani with the two Gajab, Shugula, Sholaga issue with the leg or something, Korum ticket and take some much over.
John that
John that saying Marenko Tangzijan and let this later, and I got it mustn't Masabato. The Nitaragio is a good the game cares.
Did it?
I was sorry, I was slightly stepping outside my role as an interpreter. I was offering to His Holiness the suggestion that if you look at the monastic education at a very young age, memorization, daily memorization is a very important part of the training. So I would argue that this daily memorization really teaches many of the things that you are suggesting, because on an average, a very young child, say 8 or 7-year-old, will have to memorize 3 to 4 stanzas. So each stanza has 4 lines. So you're talking about 12 lines. And you need to learn to string them together. You need to remember which stanza comes after which. All of this requires a fair bit of, and then it also places a tremendous responsibility on the young child so that in the evening, when the time comes, he or she has to, rehearse it, recite it back without the text to the teacher. So that really, and somehow the child has to find the time during the day during which he or she has to negotiate between the plays and the memorization time, so that by the end of the day, this has been done.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why Russian children 30 years ago were better, because they used to do more memorization. And people today say memorization is bad. We want children to understand, etc., and that's important. But I think you're absolutely right that doing memorization early really does train your mind. It trains executive control. I think you're absolutely right.
Mathieu, please.
And also on top of that, when you do the memorization, in the West, the schools are supposed to be very silent. The teacher is out the class, he comes in, everybody goes silent. In Eastern schools, where both secular and monastic, they shout. And they don't shout the same thing. They just shout what they are reading or memorizing. And when the teacher comes in, they shout even louder, because that's what they are supposed to do. So that's maybe help also to channel their sort of energy and think that otherwise would be sort of boiling.
Absolutely. I think the Western schools expect children to be little adults. And children aren't meant to sit still for long periods. They need to move. They need to do. Traditional Jewish is exactly the same. In a Western library, you're supposed to be quiet and study silently. But Jews always study together. So you go to the Jew, and they're always talking. And, they're talking at this table, and they're talking at that table, and they're exactly what you were saying.
And then a second point.
I fully agree. One time, you see, my visit, because of my pilgrimage, Jerusalem to war, Jerusalem, Israel to war.
So His Holiness was on his way to Israel.
From Bombay. The whole sort of, whole time, some Jewish, never remain silent. Talk loudly.
So His Holiness was saying that their conversation was totally, sort
loud.
of never ending and quite loud.
So normally when His Holiness is traveling, he doesn't need to, put earplugs to block the aeroplane engine sound. But that evening, he felt that he might have to actually use the earplugs.
And the second point is, when you go to a recreation courtyard in the Western schools, there's a lot of turbulence, and also here and there you can see kids bashing each other. Well, I observed both in monastics, elementary schools, where a lot of children, from 5 to 12, and in all the secular schools that we built in Tibet and helping in Nepal. There's the same playgrounds where they're very active, but it's very, very rare that you see a fight. It's exceptional. And so where does it come from? I think a general culture of nonviolence. We know when the parents, by their behavior, when they see a small insect, they will pick it up out of the way and things like that. And also the combination of secular ethic, I would say. In those secular schools, like one in Nepal, there's 1,000 kids in the courtyard. They do gymnastics. At the end, the principal comes and he does an ethical lecture, human values. And he speaks about good heart. And he does to all the kids. And he's the head of the school. And in Nepal, there's a symbol. If you hold your hair, it's like a pledge. And at the end, they pledge, may I have good heart with my friends, may I have good heart outside. And he gives them images. He says, in some schools in the world, people teach the kids to become suicide bombers. I want you to become peace bombs. When you go out, you will bring peace in your families. And things like, and the kids, you could see them, they're so inspired. So I think all these things together, the culture, the fact that ethical values are brought and taught and spoken about, and it brings this whole feeling. And so I think that's something maybe that also exists here, and then all those techniques could be blended.
Yes.
That's something that should be imported more to the West. Yes. Yes.
Sean?
I'm wondering about meditation now. Are there meditation practices for young children? And at what age? What is the appropriate age for meditation to start?
No.
다음에 응아로 알아봐서 참.
그래.
강남으로 됐다. 참 주주만 자는데 여쭤봐도 셴다 가고.
So for an average child in the Tibetan monastic system or generally Tibetan education system, when they get up in the morning, they would chant the Manjushri mantra. This is the mantra of the Buddha of wisdom, and then do a little bit of prayer. And then there is no formal sitting meditation for children, and the only thing that you have comparable is the memorization that they will do on a daily basis.
At what age did, Your Holiness, what age did you start to meditate?
I think 6. 6. meditation. Meditation 안 되고 공급이다.
So in terms of strictly speaking, informal sitting meditation, not even now.
Of course, me, of course now, I realize, and not only myself, but many sincere practitioners, one sort of lacking is the single-pointed mind meditation. But as far as sort of change or transformation of our emotion is concerned, analytical meditation is much more effective than single-pointed meditation. So my whole sort of life, whole year, I think since around, I think 14, 15, 16, then I start analytical meditation. And nowadays, of course, every day, from early morning, 3:30, analyze. That's very useful. So anyway, of course, I have no time. Just single-pointed sort of meditation. You need complete sort of silent, quiet place, and continuously, almost 24 hours, continuously sort of practice or training.
No, training.
Then within the quickest
quickest time frame.
No, minimum time, within 6 months, you may achieve shamatha. But for me, impossible. Like that. So then it's, of course, that merit.
Balance.
But the church sem kompada tungnik tao kome merit da sim jiji things kome merit chan
So within the Buddhist practice, you have many different forms of practices. So you have, for example, cultivation of the altruistic awakening mind, bodhicitta, on the one side, and meditation on deepening one's understanding of emptiness. Then you have single-pointed meditation, cultivating shamatha. So if you compare these in terms of actual benefits and the merits, then the spending time more on altruistic practices and meditation on emptiness is more beneficial and effective than doing shamatha practice. So it's a question of balance.
강점진에 저주스도 돈이 있다 냠니 강점 그때 또 냠용을 연백하도 다 라토시네.
So however, it is true that after a certain point, if you really need to make further progress, then attainment of shamatha is indispensable.
I wanted to go back to what you said about memorization in young children. And this is a question about whether you think that motor movement plays a part in this as well. When I was studying Hebrew, they didn't teach me what it meant. They only taught me to read the letters. And when I would go to pray, I would do what Jews often do, which is to rock back and forth when we did it. So I would be saying these things I memorized that I had no understanding of, and I'm rocking. When Buddhist children, Tibetan children, are saying these things they memorized, are they also rocking? And do you think that is important, or is it just a side thing?
Same. Jewish, Israel,
Muslims.
Yeah.
Tibetan monks, yeah.
Buddhists,
Yeah.
same.
So
I think Hindu, those sort of study memorization, I think same matter. They automatically use
so His Holiness feels that it's more of an automatic kind of activity. I don't know why we do this. His Holiness says he has no idea. In fact, in the formal sitting sessions in the prayer hall, you're not supposed to move too much. You're supposed to sit upright and straight.
I'm just wondering, and I have no idea of the answer, if the movement is somehow important to the development of executive control. If somehow we do it naturally, but is it an important component or just an accidental side thing?
I don't know.
So there's another tradition, Adele. Again, His Holiness was saying that he is not really sure what it meant, but for example, in the monastic universities, some of the texts that the monks memorize are very long. And then in order to ensure that they go into the long-term memory, you have to repeat them for at least about a month, every, preferably every night. And some of these will take 3 hours to finish. So when you do that, you generally, the monk would walk up and down in the dark without the text and walk up and down, and it will take hours.
Interesting.
It may also maybe the simple fact that it makes you less sleepy. So because otherwise when you're sitting down and reciting, at some point you start dozing off.
We think
and in fact in the monastic disciplinary texts, which are very ancient texts, there are references to the need for monks to walk around.
In our thinking, we often think...
Yes.
I'll be very short. In our thinking, we often think of thinking, cognition, and motor as separate. But in the brain, they are not separate. The same brain regions that are important for motor are also important for cognitive. So it may be that this movement is somehow that we don't understand yet an important component.
And maybe the phenomenological side has something to say about that.
I'm going to talk about just that kind of thing on Friday. And in fact, I'm going to cite one of your papers. But I wanted to bring up a recent study of ADHD, where young children fidget a lot. People who suffer from attention deficit disorder fidget, move when they're trying to do something, and it has been the practice of teachers trying to calm them down, sit still and pay attention and so forth. And a recent study has shown that, in fact, the movement helps them pay attention. And it might be because, then they don't have to pay attention to try to sit still, but they can just do whatever they have to do, and the attention goes to what they are trying to accomplish.
Well, I think that has been very developmental for our understanding. So it's past, and we're going to have a quick lunch, and then we gather again at before 1 o'clock, please. Thank you.